Hex went all the way down to 2 cents not too long ago. But the question is this the bottom, or we should expect lower prices in the coming weeks or months? Well, I believe this is a question everybody is asking themselves in order to find the best possible time to buy as many tokens as possible and load up your bags at the lowest possible price. Because we know that even a small difference in your entry can make a huge impact on your long-term position, and if you buy Hex for example at these prices and the price goes back to its all-time high, you will make a 9x return on your investment. But if you bought at the local bottom right here, you will basically add 1 in front, so you will make a 19x return. So basically 5 cents might sound a good entry point for any long-term holder, but we can't neglect the fact that a small difference in the entry point can really make your portfolio go through the roof, and instead of making a good amount of money, make an insane amount for the same period with the same investment. So timing is crucial when it comes to investing, and no, I'm not saying you should try to time the bottom to buy and then time the top to sell. This doesn't make sense whatsoever, and I don't recommend anyone to try do this. However, it's important to know how close we are to the bottom and to the top, so you can make your investment decisions based on that information and not buy at around 5 cents over here, let's say, and hold all the way up to 50 cents and make an easy 10x return. But you know, people talk about getting rich from Hex, making 100, even 500x, and you don't want to sell for only 10x tiny profit and lose your chance to become the next millionaire. But you know, eventually this happens to be the top, and now you're holding all the way down and probably stake your bag to at least earn some interest, because the price of your tokens is now the same as 1 year ago when you bought them. But anyway, my point is that identifying these bull and bear markets is crucial, and you can see that people who bought here around these prices, and I purposely don't measure from the very bottom because barely anyone bought down there, and I like to keep things more on the realistic side. So people who bought around here, it doesn't matter where exactly, just random price because that was within the bear market. So people who bought here got a juicy 100x gains, again not selling at the very top. So really life-changing gains in less than 1 year. And if you invested $5,000 and sold around 40 cents, you will now have $500,000. But if you are the random Joe who heard about Hex because it was pumping and bought, let's say around here, you could barely make 20x even if you sold at the top, even though 2 cents and half a cent look very close and good entry points. So you know that on this channel I don't hype any project, and I try to remove the noise completely and not tell you on every single dip that this might be the best chance to get into Hex and you might never see lower than these prices, and you buy every single dip because you don't want to miss the chance to load up your bags with discounted Hex. But the problem is that it keeps dipping and you run out of dry powder to buy at the really low prices. So we're gonna analyze as much information as possible in order to find out if 0.028 cents was the bottom, and if it was not, how low we can go, is it worth buying at these prices, how high we can go when we turn bullish again, and so on. So let's jump right into it. So I want to start off with the fact that we are officially in a bear market, if you didn't know that by any chance, and it's typical to see these kinds of pumps occasionally, which are super sweet by the way, as you can double or triple your portfolio quite easily, of course if you know what you're doing. And as a matter of fact, Hex pumped around 2.5x in about 2 months time, and you could have doubled your stack already. But I want to stress out that if you are new into crypto and investing in general, I recommend you to stick with long-term investing and not do this kind of swing trades, as you can completely mess it up, even though the downside risk is not as high as if you buy at this range over here. And I know many people deployed all their cash here already, and now they have no other choice than staking and hodling, because we won't reach these prices probably in the next 1 or 2 years. But even if you bought around here at these low levels with the intention to sell for a quick 2x profit after a month or two, but it turns out you bought near the top and now the price starts to go down, first, if you decide to hold this position as your long-term entry, the entry is not bad. And second, you can sell for break even and even a profit while we are still in the bear market and not miss the chance to buy much lower for your long-term position. So all in all, this is a great way to grow your portfolio relatively safe while we are still in the bear market and the price action is kinda boring, but I don't recommend you to do it if you don't know what you're doing. For instance, this is absolutely the worst time to get into, no matter if you want to trade in the short term or you want to buy for a long-term hold, because at this point the price can literally go either way. You never want to buy when we are kinda in the middle of nothing because the risk is just too high. Now the price holds some kind of resistance here, as you can see, and to be honest, I'm not too big into technical analysis and I don't want to pretend that I know too much about it, but this is just some basic stuff. If you're a trader and you can read the charts better than I and see that the data suggests a reversal here, that's a completely different story, as obviously there is some room to the upside because we didn't touch the bull market support band on this rally. But in both cases you should know that during the bear market, cash is king, and this kind of plays are not done with 100% of your cash but 50% at most. Of course, no matter if you're a trader or beginner or just investing long term or whatever, it doesn't matter, because none of this is financial advice price, and that's just my personal opinion. But anyway, 0.028 cents is the lowest we dropped during this bear market. And before we dive deep into the analysis and see whether this is the bottom or we should expect lower prices sometime in the future, I want to quickly mention something because I think it's so funny and so many people are going out of breath on every podcast and normal YouTube videos, and I'm just flabbergasted how naive people can be. And I'm actually wondering if they genuinely think this or they just simply do it for the clout. I don't know, you decide. Basically, almost any hexicon or YouTuber or influencer who supports hex, whatever you want to call them, said at least once that Richard Hart called 0.028 cents the bottom for hex. I mean, is this some kind of joke? Like, what do you expect him to say? That we are going lower than that and it's a matter of time to get below 1 cent and crush the price immediately? Of course he's gonna say that this is the bottom for hex and the only direction now is up and to the right. I'm not surprised of him saying that, but I'm actually surprised of you believing it and spread the word on YouTube and Twitter and trigger so many beginners to buy as much as they can. Richard Hart called the Bitcoin top, but why didn't call the hex top? Pretty simple, right? If he said that let's say 25 cents is the top, do you think the price was going to continue to rally or it was just going to collapse and reach the bear market levels straight away? I think everybody with common sense knows the answer to this question, so I don't know why some people don't apply this logic when it comes to Richard Hart calling the bottom for hex. Like, I'm honestly just amazed how these people can just hype and don't care about the consequences. Guys, you need to be careful and you need to be very cautious when somebody tells you it is a good time to buy a certain coin. I never heard anyone from the hex community to say, guys, be careful, we might face a pullback here, start taking some profits. You know, when we were in a bull market last year and the price of hex was pumping like crazy, no one said back then it is a good time to take profits because we are too far extended into the bull market and we might face a pullback soon. Everybody was calling for $1 hex and hyping as much as they can and telling you that you better buy now because you're missing the rocket to the moon. And the truth is, they are trying to onboard as many people as possible so they can pump their bags and sell their tokens to the newcomers. Of course, this is how the markets work. In order for some people to make money, other people have to lose. But this is just a nasty way to make money out of your audience, and you as an influencer, your top priority has to be to provide value and not use your channel for marketing purposes. When we were down here, everybody said that the price is at a huge discount and it's a great time to buy. Eventually we dropped lower. At these prices, they said again it's a good time to buy and this is an opportunity of a lifetime. What happened next? We dropped lower again. At 10 cents, they said we might never drop below 10 cents and this might be the best price you could ever get for hex. And of course it was a matter of time to drop 70% from that price. And what do we see again? The same story. This is the bottom and you better start buying now because the price can skyrocket the next day and you miss the chance to get rich and this and that. No one is talking about profit taking and risk management because, you know, this is not good for the price, it's not good for the bag. The information on YouTube and Twitter is so biased that it's actually not useful anymore for the general investor unless you are watching a tutorial on how to buy hex or something like that. So I'll try to answer the question now, is this the bottom for hex or we can go lower? And of course I want to highlight that no one can predict the future and no one can call the top or the bottom, and if they do, that's just pure luck. So playing the game here to try to call the bottom will be kinda useless and we're not gonna do that. Instead, I'll provide you with a very broad perspective and analyze what the data is saying, and based on that, we'll try to find out how likely is 0.028 cents to be the bottom. Is it a good time to buy? And what is the chance to go lower? And in order to do that, the first thing we need to look at is how far we are into the bear market. And everybody and their dog knows that Bitcoin dictates the whole crypto market. And I know that many people call that hex has its own market cycle and some other nonsense like that. But I just suggest you to look at the charts and find out whether this is true or not, and not blindly believe what anybody says. Obviously, hex doesn't have its own market cycle as it goes down when Bitcoin goes down, and it goes up with Bitcoin as well. And we can say that it's slightly decorrelated, but that it has its own market cycle, well, this is a pretty bold statement and absolutely no evidence suggesting this so far. So we gotta work with Bitcoin to find out. And the good thing about Bitcoin is that we have so much data to work with, and even though we won't be able to be super precise in our predictions, we can get a very good idea, and that's more than enough. So typically, Bitcoin finds its bottom around 1 year after its all-time high, and we can see that in the last cycle where Bitcoin found its bottom exactly 1 year after the top. In the previous cycle, we can see that it took him a little bit over than that, but it's still around 1 year. Also, we can see that even though the bottom was here, you had multiple chances to buy around the bottom for a very long period of time. So even if you miss the bottom, you will have a second and a third chance to get in at very low prices. And in fact, we can see that in the next cycle as well, even though it looks a little bit different. If you missed the bottom here, you had a second chance to buy close to the bottom in March of 2020. And you know, these bear markets last quite some time, and we usually don't see some kind of V-shaped recovery recovery and flip from a bear into a bull market overnight, and it usually takes around 2 years and a half measured from the top until we see the beginning of the new bull market. So you have plenty of time to accumulate your favorite coins, and I don't recommend you to rush right now. And if you are wondering what are these yellow lines here, this basically marks the Bitcoin halvings, and this has been a pretty accurate indicator so far to signal the beginning of the bull market. So you can see on all 3 occasions, not too long after the Bitcoin halving we got into a bull market. And if you don't know yet, the next Bitcoin halving is in 2024, and we have so much time to spend in this bear market. Also, something very interesting is that if we measure a year and a half back from the Bitcoin halving, this is where the bottom is, and we can see that in both cycles. So if we assume that history is going to repeat itself, that means a year and a half measured from the 2024 Bitcoin halving, gonna estimate the bottom for Bitcoin between October and November this year. But not only that, we know that around 1 year after the top, Bitcoin finds its bottom, and if I measure 1 year from the top, we can see that this also puts the bottom between October and November this year. So looking at the previous cycles that Bitcoin dropped around 85%, and considering the inflation and the terrible macro overall, I think there is a very high chance that we are going to see lower prices on Bitcoin and HEX respectively. Now, this doesn't mean we have to see lower prices and we are destined to go lower, but in my opinion it's more likely to see them than not. And with Bitcoin we have a lot of data to work with, and we can estimate how low we can potentially go. For instance, we can say that the lowest we might go could be 10k, but I think it's completely unreasonable to say that we can go back to 5k for example. But in terms of HEX and most of the altcoins, we have no idea how low this stuff can drop, so I can't tell you wait for this price and then buy, or you should have bought at 2 cents or something like that. But what I can do tell you is that there is a long bear market ahead and a very high chance for lower prices. Also, I don't want to be that guy who is spreading FUD, but I'm the guy who is talking about the risks, and I literally don't see anyone talking about the future of HEX on the Ethereum site when Pulse Chain launches. What is going to be the incentive for people to buy and stake HEX and pay high gas fees and be outside of the Richard Hart's community in a sense, when you have all your tokens, all features and low gas fees with HEX on the Pulse Chain site? Now, I'm not saying that HEX is going to zero and it's going to be worthless after Pulse Chain, but what I'm saying is that there are so many unknowns and what ifs, and it's extremely risky to buy now. Of course, nothing in this video is financial advice and I'm just sharing my opinion with you, but I have a video going in depth about the risks of HEX after Pulse Chain that will pop on the screen, and you can check it out if you want to learn more. You can also support my channel by giving the like button a gentle tap and subscribe if you don't want to miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.